Hey guys, Robbie K coming in at you with another review. Tonight is the first of two we're going to start with. It's the new Clint Eastwood film, The Mule. Coming off of his kind of cowboy days and into more of the somber realism ones, Clint Eastwood's directing, writing has been probably the big thing taking his career. Pretty good, Tim. How you doing? I know, I'm here all the time. So, as we kind of get into it, he's taking on a little more of a somber writing. And tonight is another one of his grand projects, starring him, produced by him, potentially directed by him, and written by him. Yes, it is. Clint Eastwood coming in again with The Mule. Now, if you're new to this channel, thank you for first showing up. And let's kind of break it down. Talk about the trailer with no spoilers that aren't already in the trailer. Throw in the second one, which then comes into a quick and easy review to get you in and out real quick if you're faster reviews. And for those that want a little more detail, check me out in the like section, because that's where the second part of the review comes in which we talk about the likes and the dislikes and give you a little more, I guess, in-depth review of it. Now, regardless, let's get started with starting with the trailer. The Mule, in case you haven't seen it, is Clint Eastwood's character is essentially out looking for more work after his first business kind of comes to an end. As such, he accidentally gets into the drug delivery business and for the cartels, working to essentially make a living by delivering some unknown packages. Meanwhile, Bradley Cooper, leading a DEA group, is trying to figure out who the source of it is. And as many stories kind of entangle, we get essentially the drama and shenanigans to come out with it. What will happen? Well, I can't really tell you because I'll ruin the movie. So let's kind of get on board and get started. When it comes to The Mule in terms of it, it's actually one of the better Clint Eastwood films I liked. Now, probably this is because I went in with very low expectations, and of the 11, was on the bottom of my list for the ones I wanted to see. I won't lie. Because of some of the things we'll talk about later, but nevertheless, this turned out to be much better than I anticipated, with a little more lightheartedness to it, some definite realism, and a pace that actually wasn't dirt slow for me, like I've seen with some of his other movies. It works, it runs very well. For the most part, I was actually very pleased with a lot of the directions they took. Funny, but not being overly funny. Very realistic, good character development, and definitely a lot of moral lessons coming in that maybe I wasn't quite expecting to be as curtailed with it. Unfortunately, the pace and everything kind of is offset by a little bit of the DEA side stories that don't really progress very well, or at least aren't as pertinent to me. Throw in the second thing of when you get to the ending, the last 20 minutes completely derail the momentum it was taking. And while I think it's fitting in terms of it, when it hits that kind of component and takes away from how the first part of the movie felt, that's where it kind of lost me a little bit. Nevertheless, if you're looking for a Clint Eastwood, more realistic film, this is probably going to be the one this week that I would totally recommend for a theater visit. But otherwise, I'm saying that this one's probably best reserved for watching at home, preferably with fellow Clint Eastwood fans, or potentially like in those small movie clubs that can go out and really enjoy an artistic film, which I believe this one is a little more into. So well done in terms of that, but definitely not the biggest theater-going one. So where does that leave me in terms of my scores? I guess in terms of drama, crime, and maybe thriller if they put it on there, I'd probably give it about a 7. Movie overall, it's about a 6. And again, that's probably being on a little bit of the harsher side. So if we're going a little bit on the realism, it's probably 7.5 to be honest, with maybe a 6 still for the movie overall. Nevertheless, if this is where I leave you, have a good night. Thank you for watching. There will be an Aquaman review later on this evening after I get done. But otherwise, have a good one, and we'll talk to you soon. For those looking for a little more in-depth, here we go. I like to start on the positive side of things, and when that happens, we look at the likes. So in terms of what I like about it, the first thing is that this is actually a movie which pacing is much better than what I've seen in some of his other previous works. I guess it also helps the fact that this isn't a nearly 3-hour film either. For The Mule is much more of a limited to just under 2 hours, and it doesn't feel like it's a 4-hour movie. The pacing's fun, there's a lot of just kind of things moving about. You see the predictable plot essentially continue to develop at a reasonable rate, and even with the side story kind of going along, it mixes things up a little bit to help out with it. And as such, I like that, as opposed to things like Gran Torino or Jersey Boys, 2 of his other projects. They just didn't work for me in terms of pacing once you reached a certain point. Really hitting the derailing mode and very much dragging like through molasses. Now, in regards to something else, I did appreciate the humor in this. It's a movie that feels very realistic, which is, again, another positive in like, but it's also not so dry that I wanted to fall asleep instead of actually watching the movie. The Mule does a really nice job of bringing humor in and just being kind of interjecting some drier sense of quips and puns. As the relationships develop and the career sort of kind of keeps going in, you actually have a really good, fun time of just hearing his interactions with the people. And just, even on the side note, it's just a lot of fun, especially listening to the music and seeing some of the stops that he does. So, you know, kudos to that for helping bring the enjoyment into it. In regards to character development, I can't say it's the most in-depth, but at the same time, it's also not so mind-bogglingly slow. It is very well done in terms of you get to see him foster, you get to see his character start uncovering new sides of him. And it works so well because we're not just sticking around in the mud. It's not one of those where they suddenly make big progress and take a step back. It's back to beginning. It's a very much touch and go, gradually making the changes to learn something new. And it works very well in regards to his character development. In regards to acting, we know Clint Eastwood is pretty good at taking on a number of roles. And he's got the crotchety old man role down pat. But this one is, again, nice because it's not just him sulking. It's him trying to find a new way. And it works because it helps you open up new doors and you just get to enjoy his laughter and his comedy routine with it. So, again, a very nice job of still taking what he's famous for, but adding a nice twist to help evolve his character and acting role. And if I still haven't got you into it, I guess the other thing is that there is a deep enough suspenseful role into it without being too overwhelming. You know, when it comes to some movies like this, it's really all about getting stuck into the bloody, torturous deception that comes with kind of these cartel movies where you get to see some very graphic treatment and inhumane treatment of the characters. As such, not the case for this one. Enough suspense to still keep you going and enough other issues, but again, not over the top that it's going to disturb too many people. I guess outside of that, I would say that overall, the movie works very well in terms of those likes. Essentially, just a much better terms of a Clint Eastwood film than what I've seen in the past. But now let's kind of get to the dislikes, because again, no movie's perfect, and these may not be dislikes for you, but these are areas of improvement for me. And in regards to it, the first thing is the side story with the DEA. I get where its place is, I get where it fits. I get a lot of things involving why they essentially included it. But at the same time, I don't think it was executed quite well for my taste. There seemed to be a lot more of kind of these sidelong premises to give just enough information to start waylaying on this search for the cartel. But it's not enough to really include the other characters. Again, this is one of those things where it's a little more focused on Clint Eastwood's character, which I know is what the point of the movie is. That's why it's called The Mule, not the DEA chase. But at the same time, I guess I wanted a little more integration like what you've seen in Catch Me If You Can. These two side stories really kind of developing together, a few more intertanglements to really kind of bring it to full light. And it just didn't work for me. At least not all the way. Now, it's not awful. Again, you get enough of it, and the picture's included there. But at the same time, I guess I would have liked a little more, especially when you bring some of the high cast members into it. I would say I would want a little bit of suspense. It's a little more lighthearted and fun, which is good, but at the same time, not quite the same sullen, on the edge of your seat suspensefulness that I really wanted to see. It's not that it was awful by any means, but again, I just wanted a little more on-edge components that I feel was maybe missing for it. But maybe that's also because of the predictability. For the most part, the predictability of the movie is there for it. You've got some ideas of what's going to happen. There's enough foreshadowing in terms of the dialogue to really kind of tell you where it's going. And it's okay. It's not awful, but as a result, you take some of that suspense away when you drop the obvious hints. Really, most of these are very nitpicky for me in terms of it. And I guess it's just the fact of that there's a little bit of, what's the word I'm looking for? It's just not looking in terms of all the specialness and uniqueness that I think it was going for. Now, in regards to anything else I can come up with, the biggest dislike I have is really the ending. Now, before you discredit me, before you rip my head off in the comments, hear me out. I get it. The movie ended where it needed to go. It followed all the predictable trends, finished where it was trying to finesse with, and by far, it fits in terms of a complete story case. The part that I had an issue with is that when this part finally came about, it suddenly took all the momentum that was building up and derailed into what was usually happening with it, which is a much slower, darker component that just did not feel that it belonged into the movie in terms of just the way that it was presenting. And again, I get it from a lot of other areas. I can't say much though, because if I do, I may give away too many hints. But nevertheless, the last 20 minutes is where it kind of undid with me and dropped back into the territory I did not thoroughly enjoy when it comes to a Clint Eastwood film. As a result, I'm okay with it. I really, again, from a story component, I get it. But just from a momentum point, that was the worst thing for me. So why is it taking as many hints when it sounds like I'm just kind of being picky in terms of it? Well, I guess the part of it is that there was a little more of his life I wanted to see, a little more character expansion with the same momentum component. And at the same time, it's just lacking some of the other components in terms of storytelling that make this movie a theater-worthy movie. Again, it is more so that this would have been great as a Netflix or even a mini-series component. But still, not a bad movie. Very enjoyable and one of my favorites of Clint Eastwood that's not his Western. But it was fun. So overall, you've heard my scores. Again, we're probably looking about the 7, 7.5 range to the 6, 6.5 range in terms of the relative categories. Definitely worth it for Clint Eastwood fans. But again, if you're a traditional Western person, you're not going to enjoy this as much. But I did enjoy it. Definitely a good drama-related one and a good character-centric story. As always, guys, thank you for listening to my rantings and my ramblings. Very much appreciate it. We will definitely try to get something going soon with the Aquaman. So be on the lookout for this and both written ones, hopefully tonight. And we'll see you later. Thanks, guys. And please like, share, support. Tell me how to improve. And I'd thoroughly be happy to work my best on it. Thank you very much. Good night.